Billie Holiday lived a completely different life in Europe. Lady Day, who was under FBI surveillance in America, adopted a completely different persona when she crossed the Atlantic Ocean. Secret romantic relationships in Paris, mysterious political connections in London, and underground jazz circles in Stockholm all were part of Billie Holiday's hidden European life. French intelligence documents, British diplomatic cables, and Scandinavian music industry records reveal that her overseas tours weren't just musical performances. Today, I'm going to tell you about these secret European adventures and explain the untold stories that happened on the other side of the Atlantic. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel because in the coming weeks, we'll be sharing the overseas adventures of other American artists and the hidden secrets of the international music scene. In the autumn of 1953, Billie Holiday undertook her first transatlantic voyage that would change her entire life trajectory. Due to increasing FBI pressure and systematic persecution in the American jazz scene, European opportunities suddenly provided an attractive alternative. But there was a hidden agenda in these initial European tour plans that even her closest associates were unaware of. French concert promoter Marcel Durand's invitation wasn't just for musical performance. It was part of an underground network through the European jazz scene that assisted political refugees and artists in escaping repressive American policies. During the ship journey across the Atlantic Ocean, Billie Holiday met a mysterious French intellectual named Henri Beaumont, who apparently was a literary critic but actually worked for French intelligence services. This chance encounter, or perhaps carefully orchestrated meeting, opened doors to European connections that extended far beyond the music industry. Beaumont was fascinated with American jazz culture, but also deeply concerned about the American government's treatment of Black artists. These shared interests created a bond that formed the foundation of Billie's European experiences. Upon arrival in Paris in October 1953, Billie Holiday immediately experienced a different atmosphere. European audiences approached jazz music with cultural appreciation rather than as simple entertainment. This respect was particularly meaningful for someone who often faced discrimination and limited artistic freedom in American venues. But more significantly, Paris offered anonymity and freedom that allowed her to explore aspects of her personality that American surveillance had suppressed. Her initial performances in the French capital achieved phenomenal success, but the real transformation occurred backstage and in after-hours social gatherings. European jazz enthusiasts, intellectuals, and artists gathered around her, creating intellectual stimulation that she rarely experienced in America. These cultural exchanges gradually evolved into deeper personal connections that complicated her already complex emotional life. The Paris intellectual scene in the 1950s was particularly vibrant, with expatriate American artists, French existentialist philosophers, and anti-colonial activists creating a dynamic cultural environment. Billie Holiday quickly became a central figure in this diverse community. Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir reportedly attended several of her private salon performances. These philosophical exchanges influenced her artistic perspective, introducing concepts about authentic existence that later reflected in her song interpretations. American expatriate writers in Paris, including James Baldwin and Richard Wright, recognized a kindred spirit in her artistic expression. These literary connections provided an intellectual framework for understanding her experiences within the broader African-American artistic tradition. French Communist Party members saw an opportunity to exploit her growing disillusionment with American racial policies. Party organizers arranged special performances where her music was presented as an example of authentic American culture. Underground resistance networks from World War II maintained connections with international anti-fascist movements. Former resistance fighters attended her performances and discussed parallels between Nazi racial ideology and American segregation policies. Henri Beaumont was the central figure of this Parisian circle, and his influence on Billie Holiday's European experiences cannot be overstated. Through his connections, she gained access to exclusive social circles that included prominent French writers, political dissidents, and cultural figures. These associations gradually shifted her perspective about art, politics, and her own role as a cultural ambassador. Beaumont's romantic interest in her was obvious, but their relationship involved much more than personal attraction. It represented a cultural bridge between American jazz authenticity and European intellectual sophistication. Beaumont's actual identity remained mysterious, Official records listed him as a literary critic, but his extensive international connections suggested a more complex background. Witnesses reported conversations where he demonstrated intimate knowledge of intelligence operations. Their romantic relationship developed against a backdrop of increasing international scrutiny. French tabloid newspapers began reporting their appearances at cultural events. This media attention attracted unwanted government interest, but this growing European connection didn't go unnoticed by American authorities. FBI files recently declassified through Freedom of Information Act requests reveal extensive monitoring of Billie Holiday's overseas activities. Special agents stationed in American embassies across Europe reported her movements, associations, and suspected political activities. This surveillance particularly intensified when her performances began attracting the attention of European anti-American political groups who saw her as a symbol of American cultural hypocrisy. In her second month in Paris, Billie Holiday began receiving mysterious coded letters from various European cities. This correspondence, intercepted by both French and American intelligence services, suggested coordination with an international network of artists and intellectuals who opposed American foreign policy. The contents of these letters remained classified for decades, but available fragments suggest discussions about organizing an international cultural boycott of the American entertainment industry until civil rights improvements were achieved. These political dimensions of her European experience created an ethical dilemma for Billie Holiday. On one hand, she genuinely appreciated European respect and artistic freedom. On the other hand, she remained fundamentally an American artist who maintained a complicated but unbreakable connection with her homeland. This internal conflict was reflected in her increasingly erratic behavior and emotional volatility during European tours. Her arrival in London in November 1953 opened a new chapter in her overseas adventures. The British jazz scene provided a markedly different atmosphere compared to continental Europe. English audiences, while appreciative, maintained a certain reserve that contrasted sharply with Parisian enthusiasm. However, London offered different types of opportunities, connections with the British entertainment industry that was globally influential, and a potential gateway to Commonwealth markets. The most significant development in London occurred when she met Lord Anthony Pemberton, a wealthy British aristocrat who maintained extensive business interests in the entertainment industry. Pemberton, recently widowed and seeking meaningful cultural investments, was immediately attracted to Billie Holiday's artistic authenticity and personal magnetism. Their relationship quickly evolved beyond professional collaboration into an intimate personal connection that scandalized British high society. Lord Pemberton's background included military service during World War II in intelligence operations. This wartime experience provided him with extensive international contacts and understanding of clandestine operations. British high society's reaction to their relationship reflected complex attitudes about race and class. While public racism was considered unseemly among the educated elite, private conversations revealed deep-seated prejudices. London's exclusive gentlemen's clubs became battlegrounds for competing attitudes about American integration. Pemberton's relationship served as a concrete example of changing social dynamics. Pemberton's business empire included investments in Caribbean sugar plantations, creating ethical complications regarding his relationship with an African-American artist. These economic interests contrasted with his public support for racial equality. British intelligence services through Special Branch and MI5 were already aware of Billie Holiday's associations with suspected communist sympathizers in Paris. This knowledge created a delicate situation where her artistic activities were closely monitored while simultaneously celebrated by the British cultural establishment. This contradiction was typical of Cold War-era complexities, where cultural exchange and political suspicion existed simultaneously. MI5 files reveal an extensive surveillance operation targeting both Billie Holiday and Pemberton's circle. British intelligence officials were concerned about potential security risks. However, Pemberton's connections provided protection from harassment. British cultural establishment's embrace of American jazz reflected broader post-war recalibration of Anglo-American cultural relations. Jazz represented an authentic American art form that challenged British assumptions. This aristocratic romance provided Billie Holiday with unprecedented access to British power structures. Through Pemberton's connections, she attended exclusive social gatherings where prominent politicians, business leaders, and cultural figures mingled. These experiences revealed a European perspective on American race relations that profoundly disturbed her. The British intellectual class viewed American segregation as a barbaric anachronism that undermined American moral authority in the post-war world. Private dinner parties at Pemberton's mansion featured prominent British establishment figures, cabinet ministers, and cultural luminaries engaged in frank discussions about American racial policies, often using her presence to express disapproval. British media coverage of their relationship varied dramatically. Conservative newspapers emphasized scandal while liberal publications celebrated cultural integration. This attention attracted international notice. Pemberton's political connections proved invaluable when the American embassy began pressuring British authorities to limit Billie Holiday's activities. His influence protected her from overt harassment while enabling continued performances and social engagements. This protection came with a price, however, as their relationship attracted unwanted media attention that complicated both their lives significantly. Her arrival in Stockholm in December 1953 introduced Billie Holiday to the Scandinavian jazz scene that displayed unique characteristics. Swedish audiences demonstrated almost reverent appreciation for authentic American jazz, treating performers as cultural ambassadors rather than mere entertainers. This respect was particularly meaningful for someone who faced constant discrimination in her homeland. The Swedish cultural establishment embraced Billie Holiday with extraordinary warmth, organizing special events and cultural exchanges that celebrated her artistic contributions. This appreciation extended to the Swedish royal family, who privately attended her performances and expressed admiration for her musical genius. Such recognition from European royalty provided validation that she never received from American cultural institutions. King Gustav VI Adolf personally requested a private audience with Billie Holiday at the royal palace. This unprecedented honor reflected Swedish commitment to cultural diplomacy and artistic excellence. Crown Princess Louise arranged intimate salon performances where Swedish aristocracy gathered. These events transcended typical concerts, creating cultural exchanges where American authenticity met European curiosity. However, Stockholm also exposed her to an underground jazz movement that maintained an explicitly political agenda. Swedish musicians and intellectuals viewed jazz as a vehicle for promoting racial equality and challenging American hypocrisies. These groups encouraged Billie Holiday to speak openly about her experiences with racism and persecution, seeing her voice as a powerful tool for social change. Stockholm Underground Jazz Collective operated a network of informal venues where experimental music mixed with radical political discourse. Billie Holiday's participation provided legitimacy to their activities. Swedish Communist Party members privately cultivated relationships with jazz musicians. Party representatives attended underground performances and engaged in conversations about racial oppression parallels. Labor union representatives requested special performances where her music was presented as authentic working-class cultural expression. These events attracted audiences who never previously attended jazz performances. Swedish intellectual community engaged her in extensive discussions about art's role in social progress. These conversations explored relationships between artistic expression and cultural diplomacy. Underground resistance networks maintained connections with international anti-fascist movements. Former resistance organizers met with her to discuss parallels between Nazi ideology and American segregation. This political engagement created increasing tension with American diplomatic representatives who pressured her to avoid controversial statements. This pressure intensified when Swedish newspapers began publishing interviews where she criticized American race relations and expressed appreciation for European tolerance. American embassy officials warned her about potential passport restrictions if she continued making anti-American statements. Swedish foreign ministry officials mediated between American diplomatic demands and Swedish commitment to cultural freedom. This tension reflected broader Cold War dynamics. Stockholm's jazz clubs became focal points for international cultural exchange. These venues attracted diverse audiences including Swedish royalty and American expatriates, creating unique social environments. Meanwhile, FBI surveillance reports documented her associations with known Communist Party sympathizers in Swedish jazz circles. This monitoring included phone tapping, mail interception, and infiltration of her social circles by American intelligence assets. This extensive surveillance violated Swedish sovereignty and created diplomatic tensions when Swedish security services discovered American spying activities. The most mysterious aspect of the European tour involved her periodic disappearances from scheduled activities. Hotel records show gaps in her registrations, transportation documents reveal unexplained trips to remote locations, and personal accounts describe meetings with unidentified individuals who provided no names or explanations for their presence. These missing time periods sparked extensive speculation about clandestine activities. One particularly intriguing incident occurred during a supposed vacation in the Swiss Alps in January 1954. Official records show her staying at a luxury resort in St. Moritz, but local police reports document her presence at a remote mountain cabin owned by a mysterious international businessman with questionable connections. This individual, later identified as an arms dealer with connections to various revolutionary movements worldwide, allegedly discussed financing for American civil rights organizations through European channels. This Swiss connection was never fully investigated by American authorities, partly because diplomatic complications would have resulted from exposing illegal surveillance activities on neutral Swiss territory. However, classified memos suggest significant concern about potential weapons procurement for American domestic insurgency activities. These fears proved unfounded, but they illustrate the level of suspicion surrounding her European activities and international connections. Financial aspects of her European tours also raised questions among American investigators. Her reported income from performances significantly exceeded documented payments from concert promoters, suggesting additional revenue sources. European banking records showed substantial deposits connected with civil rights organizations and anti-segregation activism funding. These financial discrepancies complicated her eventual return to the United States in spring 1954. American customs officials detained her extensively, searching luggage and personal possessions for evidence of illegal activities and suspicious financial transactions. No contraband was discovered, but extensive documentation was confiscated, including personal letters, business records, and political literature that provided valuable intelligence about her overseas connections and European network activities. The most damaging revelation involved romantic correspondence with Henri Beaumont that detailed discussions about organizing an international cultural boycott of the American entertainment industry. These letters, while not explicitly treasonous, demonstrated a level of political engagement that exceeded artistic expression and approached potential sedition according to FBI legal analysis and governmental concerns. Return to the American domestic jazz scene proved psychologically difficult after European cultural acceptance and artistic freedom. Billie Holiday frequently expressed longing for European appreciation and tolerance, contrasting it unfavorably with American racial hostility and professional limitations. This nostalgia influenced her subsequent career decisions and personal relationships, creating persistent tension between patriotic loyalty and cultural alienation that affected her remaining years. European media coverage of her American struggles provided ongoing international embarrassment for American cultural diplomacy efforts. European newspapers regularly reported incidents of discrimination and harassment she faced, using her treatment as an example of American hypocrisy regarding democratic values and human rights. This international criticism contributed to gradual changes in American policies. Her European experiences fundamentally changed her artistic perspective and political consciousness. Songs she recorded after European tours contained subtle references to international themes and universal human experiences that transcended specifically American contexts. This evolution reflected a broader worldview that encompassed global perspectives on justice, equality, and artistic expression that influenced her remaining career significantly. The second European tour in 1955 revealed how profoundly her overseas experiences had transformed her. European audiences immediately recognized changes in her performance style and emotional expression. Her singing contained new depth and sophistication that reflected cultural growth and expanded consciousness achieved through international exposure and meaningful cultural exchanges. This second tour also demonstrated the lasting impact of her European relationships. Henri Beaumont organized special concert series in Paris that featured her alongside prominent European musicians, creating unprecedented cultural fusion that influenced an entire generation of international jazz artists. These collaborations produced recordings that remain influential examples of transatlantic cultural exchange and artistic cooperation between American jazz traditions and European cultural sophistication. Lord Pemberton continued supporting her career through British entertainment industry connections, arranging concert bookings and recording opportunities that provided financial stability and artistic growth. Their continued relationship, while sometimes turbulent, represented an ongoing bridge between American artistic authenticity and European cultural sophistication. Stockholm audiences welcomed her return with enthusiastic celebration, organizing festivals that honored her contributions to international cultural understanding. Swedish government officials attended these events, signaling official recognition of her role as a cultural ambassador despite American government disapproval of her political statements. European press coverage of this second tour emphasized her evolution from purely American artist to international cultural figure who transcended national boundaries. This transformation reflected broader changes in the post-war cultural landscape, where artistic expression was increasingly viewed as universal human language rather than national product. However, intensified American surveillance during the second European trip revealed the extent of ongoing suspicion regarding her political activities. FBI resources devoted to monitoring her overseas movements included multiple agents stationed across European capitals, extensive communication intercepts, and coordination with allied intelligence services. This surveillance occasionally produced comic results when competing intelligence agencies monitored each other while attempting to observe her activities. French security services reported suspicious American activities around her Paris performances, while British intelligence noted unusual French interest in her London appearances. Swedish authorities documented both American and French surveillance of her Stockholm concerts, creating a complex web of international spying centered on a single jazz artist. Despite this intrigue, her actual activities remained fundamentally artistic and cultural rather than politically subversive. European intelligence services concluded that she posed no genuine security threat and primarily served as a convenient excuse for American authorities to test international cooperation agreements and surveillance capabilities. The legacy of Billie Holiday's European experiences extended far beyond her individual career achievements. Her overseas success encouraged other American jazz artists to seek international opportunities, gradually creating robust transatlantic cultural exchange that enriched both American and European musical traditions significantly. This cultural diplomacy, despite governmental suspicions and political complications, contributed to post-war healing and understanding between nations. Contemporary European musicians continue citing her international performances as inspiration for their own artistic development and creative evolution. Her approach to cross-cultural collaboration and willingness to engage with European intellectual traditions established a template for artistic cultural exchange that influences the international jazz community today. American cultural policy eventually adapted to recognize the value of international artistic exchange, partly due to positive European reception of artists like Billie Holiday. This policy evolution acknowledged that cultural exports could serve important diplomatic purposes while providing American artists with broader opportunities and meaningful experiences overseas. This story demonstrates how individual artistic expression can transcend political boundaries and contribute to international understanding despite governmental resistance and suspicion. Billie Holiday's European adventures revealed the potential for cultural exchange to bridge differences and create lasting connections between diverse communities worldwide. If you enjoyed this video and are curious about other international cultural mysteries, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Next week, we'll explain Duke Ellington's secret diplomatic missions in the Soviet Union and the fascinating untold stories of Cold War cultural diplomacy. Tell me in the comments. Do you think artistic expression can transcend political boundaries, or should artists always be viewed as representatives of their homelands?